What's up, guys? We are back. We're back for another episode of Tradition and Modern Talks. Guys, I hope you guys had a great weekend or week, it depends on where you're at watching. And I hope all is well. We are entering the month of March. I hope everybody's been preparing for this new season, staying healthy, staying fit. But enough of that. Yo, we got a new episode for you guys. We're going to be talking about a lot of things on this topic about creativity and going to the season of just learning about what do we do for our, you usually go understanding what we get from that creativity side, from poetry to videography, photography, and artistry. You know what I'm saying? Just everything going to that creativity space is topic of mine that I wanted to speak on. And it's going to be a little series going on for this. That's why I decided to touch on this, because I love that stuff. It's just one of my things as a photographer. So guys, I have a guy that I decided to reach out to from my organization called The Standard. Yo, this guy is a great videography. He actually did one of my videos on Instagram. If you noticed it, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. It's the only video guy that has the best work I've seen, in a guy doing in a couple of minutes. They just blowed it up. You know what I'm saying? Guys, I want to introduce you a guy who's also a unique person in his faith too. So it plays a part of the show. So I believe people's faith is who they are and who they carry themselves, and that's what they believe. And I respect that's where they stand. So guys, without further ado, I want to introduce you guys to a brother, the man, the myth, the legend, the one and only, the Joe of the show. What's going on, Joe?
What's going on, Moses?
Hey, bro, welcome to the show. Glad you can come on. I know it's I don't know if it's your first time being on the podcast. Is this your first time?
No, not my first, but definitely not my last.
Oh, man, I'm hoping to be the first. But you know what, though? We got you on. That's all that matters. So, guys, I want to let you guys introduce you to Joe. He's a brother from where you from originally?
Originally from Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Florida. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I got a buddy from Miami, so I know a little bit about Florida.
Nice.
Okay. And then where you currently now residing?
Yeah, so I'm in the Los Angeles area. Yeah.
Okay. Guys, reach out to Joe if you're looking for something good to get done. We're going to get into this conversation. So, Joe, what is your nationality, may I ask?
Yeah, no, I love that. So my parents were born in the Dominican Republic, so I'm Dominican. Although I don't speak the best Spanish, and I was obviously raised stateside. So
okay, so got you. So from the DR, you know where they
yes,
are.
sir.
All right.
Yes,
Respect.
sir.
You said the Wakanda. Okay. Yeah, man. So I love that your nationality is from Dominican Republic, because I've noticed with a lot of brothers come from the DR.
Mm-hmm.
Man, is it true there's a lot of creatives come from Dominican Republic? I've noticed that a lot.
Yeah.
So tell me about what got you being creative in your videography and photography.
Yeah. So I would say a big piece of that has to be my father. My father, he was a man that constantly had music playing in the house. If you looked at him from the exterior, you wouldn't say he's very creative, but man, he was creative in different ways, right? Like he was always inventing things, like with welding, or like with his hands, or with like building things, or again, he was just like a magician when it comes to height. Like he used to install like stereos and all these things. But in the Dominican Republic, dancing and music and art and culture is like such a big thing, and we kind of get a little bit of a lot of our roots from actually the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Wow, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, most people don't. Dominican Republic is not very widely talked about, despite it being like a very commonly visited touristy area. But yeah, man, so we get a lot of culture and a lot of like call and response type music from that. And yeah, we were one of the first countries, or yeah, we were one of the first like islands and countries to be colonized, for lack of a better phrase.
Okay, I remember hearing about that.
Everybody got into the United States and even South America or Latin America, right? So
yeah. Wow, you're the first. Okay, well, that's interesting. With that being said, we're not going to go into politics, that's a personal thing.
Yep,
we don't
absolutely.
need to put that out there. So
we don't.
You want to do the research? Google it. That's what we say here. Okay, so with that being said, man, did you play any instruments in your creativities growing up as a child? I know that was probably one of your things, right?
Yeah. So because my dad was such a heavy influence in my life when it comes to music, actually when I was in, I want to say 6th grade, I wanted to play the saxophone. There's something cool about the saxophone.
Love the sax here, man.
Unfortunately, I was in line, and there was this guy like 5 places ahead of me. His name was Lionel. I'm actually not mad about this now, but like at the time I was upset. He was the guy to get the last spot for the saxophone because the school
Wow.
would rent it out to us. So I ended up playing the clarinet, you know, uh,
Wow.
which I actually enjoyed the clarinet a lot more than I thought I would, and grateful for the opportunity. But I played that. I played piano a little bit. I learned how to play guitar, and then most importantly, like I got into like rapping and singing and all that stuff. So
Yeah, that's always the case. When everybody started rapping in middle school and high school, they started thinking they're the best rappers in the world. You
ooh,
know,
I mean, I am though. No, I'm just kidding.
maybe you are. You never know. It's probably the, you got to get the industry backing you up. Then they advertise you well.
Yeah, but
You
I don't want to be
know,
a rapper. I don't want to be a rapper.
no rap status. No, not the next Dominican from Cardi B to no,
Oh man, no, no way, no way,
no way.
no way.
Yeah, it's funny. I always wonder how many people in the DR are the most famous to be in this space. Because I've always thought about.
Mhm,
Cause I know Cardi's one of those from the
mhm.
industry, of course. But who are the other ones you would say you notice that have been up there in the Dominican
Yeah.
Republic?
So do you know Jules Santana?
I've heard of them.
So he's an old, like early 2000s, like 90s rapper. He was very popular. He's actually half Dominican.
Wow.
There's also, if you know who Dave East is,
Yeah, I've heard of them.
Dave East is also half Dominican. A lot of Dominicans, tend to, I'm one of the rare ones, I should say. A lot of
Yeah.
Dominicans are a little bit more like Afro
Mm,
Dominicans,
yeah.
just because of just the situation on the island. But so I want to say those three, and then there's one more, Romeo Santos. So have you ever heard
Okay.
like Danza Kuduro, the song?
No, no. Let me look at Romeo Santos.
Yeah, you could search it up later, but
Okay.
Romeo
Okay.
Santos, he's kind of he used to be part of a group called
Okay.
Ventura, and he kind of
Sure.
branched out to just being Romeo Santos now. So he's a
Okay.
very, very popular, more Latin side, not so much in the rap game, but
From the Bronx.
yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. So
Okay.
there's a lot of Dominicans in either South Florida or New York, which is where I
Okay.
was
New
born.
York.
Yeah,
Yeah, New York be the place. I know, man. Dominican Republic, man. They all in New York, man. That's like the home
that's the
base.
hub.
Is that one of the home bases, or they're the most in Miami, or is it New York? 'Cause I know Miami got a
Most in New
lot.
York, most in New York. There's
Yeah,
a
that makes
huge
sense.
Dominican community in New York. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you go back home, you feel at home. You gotta worry about passing by to Miami. You be like, yeah, Miami's cool, but New York is
Yeah.
still everything. That's good,
You
man.
can get away in New York. Sorry, this is off topic, but you can get away in New York, like not knowing any English as a Dominican if you move there, or just anybody. Like there's so much plugging into communities there.
Yeah, that is true. I've heard about people saying that going to New York is like a melting pot for everybody from a different culture, and you just basically just dwell with you can blend with everybody, just being yourself
Yeah.
and not even trying to learn the language. And that's like a thing, though. I realized with the music part, that brings us all together, which is always the creativity side.
Mhm,
But really, what gets my interest about you, Joe,
mhm.
what I've learned about you so far, just studying your life and where you've been in the past, knowing you from the standard. What do you think got you so into videography and photography?
Yeah, yeah. So this is actually kind of funny. So it started with photography, right? Um, Basically, growing up, I grew up pretty poor.
Same here.
Up until I was like 8. And then I was poor in a different way
Okay.
afterwards. So I grew up
Okay.
like in a bad neighborhood, bad area, like, low income. Didn't see my dad much for the first 8 years of my life. Like I saw him, but not so much because he was always working like 2 jobs a day, all that kind of stuff. Uh, and then we kind of moved to the middle class, like lower middle class after I turned like 8 years old, which was awesome in terms of like living in a nicer house, but living house poor, as they call it, right? The reason I preface with this is for a reason. So even though we moved into a better neighborhood and a better area, we didn't have more money because it was all going towards bills, right? So when it came down to like yearbook or like photos times every single year, there was a choice that had to be made. We either pay for my older brother or we pay for me. And I don't think my parents did this with the intention of like how it ended up affecting me in my life, but it ended up being my older brother who got photos paid for. And it wasn't all the time. It was like on the occasions that he could, right? So I had very few photos of me. I had photos of me as a kid, like a really young kid. And then there was like a big period of time where there was nothing, you know? And that was one of the first things to ignite, like oh, I want to take photos. It was like, I want to capture my life and have memories to look back on, because I didn't have any to look back on. Right. So that was a big piece. That's a little bit more like, and you know, I'm actually grateful for that, right? Because it sparked something in me. But then on a more positive note, right? Then it shifted towards, I saw people like take photos of certain areas, or like just create things that like the normal human eye wouldn't really notice, or capture things that, so it started to fascinate me, right? Because I've always been like very creative in my mind. Like I said, I've been in music, and I think music is such an artistic expression, right? Aside from just art and painting. And I was also into painting and drawing and art in school. Like I always excelled in my art classes and history classes and all these things. So that's kind of what sparked it. But you want to know the story about how I got my first camera?
Oh man, you might as well just tell it, man. I already got a feeling what it could be. Go ahead, give your story. I
Yeah,
want to get this right.
yeah. So it's pretty crazy. So my first camera ever, I actually, I I'm going with my family. I'm 12 years old, right? I'm going with my family to Toys R Us. We're going to go pick up a gift for someone who's, you know, a family from church. There's a birthday party for one of my friends, and we had to go grab him something, of course. So they bought him a gift, and on the way back, I see this like shiny object on the ground, not too far from our car, and I'm like, "What is that?" And you know, me being curious, adventurous, me, I go and run up to it because there's no cars around, and I pick it up and I'm like, what? It's a digital camera, you know, like one of those like tiny thin ones, you know, the power shoot cannons.
With the film still, or that's the old classic one?
No film. It was digital. So it was like,
Okay.
but it was one of the like typical like $140 ones, which was a lot of money, you know, for
Wow.
us at the time. But I found it on the ground, and I looked around and I saw nobody, and I asked my parents, can I keep it? Like there's no other cars, or like there's literally no cars for miles, you know? And they were like, well, okay, I guess so. And so I ended up getting that camera, and, you know, now I realize why it was on the ground. I had like some errors on occasion, but that was like my first camera to actually take photos with. I used to take like photos of trees, you know, flowers, whatever, anything in nature, you know, in Florida, which is, there's not that much stuff in Florida for nature.
Yeah, no, for real. 7 you want to see some gators and some what's called the iguanas. Is that what they run out?
Oh yeah, bro. We got iguanas for days, man. It's a pandemic over there.
Yeah, I was in Miami once. That was my first time I seen. I was like, "What the heck?" It's like just jump in the water, just run across the
You just
ground
hear,
to the. Yeah, I'm just like that's so crazy. I can imagine be walking upon one just scary out of nowhere. But that's the randomest thing though. But I think with the camera being found, bro, that's a beautiful story, man. I think
Mhm,
that's a way to start something like that. You know, mine to know I can do something new that I never gotten. That's not even affordable, and that most
mhm.
people don't understand. It starts small to start something big. You
Yeah.
know, which I think your story is a genuine story because you really didn't have the money to buy one, did you?
No, I didn't. So I was so poor,
Yeah.
you know, or I was so broke, I should say, as a kid. And obviously I was poor in mindset too,
Hmm.
that on my 16th birthday, I started work. Like I got my first job, interviewed, and then they said, when do you want to start? I literally said as soon as possible. It ended up like, okay, cool. Well, this is the earliest you could start. Ended up being the day of my birthday. Most people would be like, well, cool. I'm just gonna enjoy my birthday with family and friends. I said, no, I'm working.
Yeah.
You know, like that was how desperate I was for money, because I'd been wearing hand-me-downs and you know, things, and I didn't have my own car or anything like that, right? Like I had a good parents and you know, good family situation, which I'm grateful for, but just like, yeah, I didn't have money for a camera as much as I wanted to get one, you know. So
That makes sense. I think that, I mean, even the birthday thing with the, I always think about those things. Like, if you have a choice, man, make a wise one. You made the right choice. You know what I'm saying? It's wise to take a chance on your job over, even if it's your birthday for that day, you get tomorrow. If you get the day off, when you get the chance,
I think it was a
celebrate it.
good birthday present,
It
you know.
was okay. Well,
Yeah,
that's
I
good.
mean, I made some
Still,
money, right? Like
yeah, no, you're getting paid for your time. That's all we're doing
yeah,
is giving our time for money. And then with that being said, Joe,
yeah.
with the camera you have, what progressed you to the videography? Am I ask? I know that's the next one
Yeah.
I'm curious about. What you got to photography first?
Yeah, so a little bit of context. I ended up getting into what would you call it? I ended up getting really into Instagram. right before I moved to college. So college was a big reason why I got into videography and photography even more. So I grew up in South Florida, but I ended up moving to Northern California for university. I went to a private Christian university out there. I'm not going to disclose the name or anything like that, just for
Don't have
privacy
to.
purposes. But
Yes, you
um,
good.
yeah, it was a very nature bountiful filled place, right?
Yes, sir.
And so I downloaded social media to keep in touch with friends and connections that I had built in South Florida up to that point. But I had no social media, or I had no Instagram up to this point. I had learned from my days in Florida that if you have a good portrayal on social media of your image, you can get access to certain people, events, and things that most people wouldn't, you know? So personal branding, essentially. So I was like, cool. I was really into motivational accounts and things. And I ended up moving to school. And for my first year, I was just networking with people, had no camera. I forgot to mention at this point in time, my parachute camera had died. So I just switched to taking photos with my iPhone, which
Okay.
is like an iPhone 14, I think at the time or something. I don't even remember.
Yeah, 14. We are 14 now. I mean, the one recently.
Oh, sorry, not 14.
Four. You mean four?
It might be, no, it's not iPhone 4. It's like, I
Well,
forget
it's
which one it
iPhone.
is.
It's
It's
just
like an
it's
iPhone.
iPhone.
It
We know.
might have been iPhone 4. It might have been iPhone
Yeah,
4 or
it's
5.
probably iPhone. We just know it's iPhone. That's all we need to know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Uh, and then my sophomore year of college, I ended up, my sophomore year of college, I ended up befriending a guy by the name of Kyle, who's one of my best friends and actually a business partner of mine to this day. And
Nice.
he was like, showed me this video of this guy named Jay Alvarez, right? Jay Alvarez is this Brazilian guy who like lives in Hawaii, and he's like doing all these crazy adventures and things, and has this very attractive girlfriend, and it's just a cool lifestyle. And I'm just like, wow, like, being from where I'm from, and not having the money I've had, I'm always like, wow, that looks like such a cool lifestyle. I would love to live that. His video inspired me. It was, looking back at it now, it's like nothing crazy, but at the time it was like, whoa, this is so cool, And I was like, dude, I told all the other guys I was with, so Kyle and our other friends, it's like, let's go on an adventure, record something like this. Knew not at all how to film it, just went out, shot it, and then put it together. I think I still have one of the videos on my YouTube from that one of those experiences. But
Wow.
we grabbed a bunch of GoPros and stuff and just started shooting, and that's how I got my start, and I started progressing over time, and through attending the University of YT, YouTube,
You too.
I was able to pick up more and more videography skills for free, and I'm completely self-taught. So
That's good. I like that. How being self-taught has really been a thing now these days. I really believe there's so many things you just learn by just studying. Because I mean, college just gives you all these books to read from the teacher. That's just, I mean, it's his or her philosophy, what they'll say in the message of the
a lot of it's theory, though. That's the issue,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, just theories. Too many theories. I mean, the book gives you all the thoughts about what you need to know to understand, but that's a common thing I noticed in college with that whole thing. Even though I understand people need college degrees for certain things, but
Sure.
photography is just not one of those things. You just
Absolutely.
need to practice and get around people who are willing to let them take a picture and just learn to communicate well, because I believe a character behind a photographer matters the most, because
Mhm.
you can't just pick everybody to be a photographer. Somebody may not have the same views, I get it, but you want someone with a good standing on life that understands the pictures they're taking, that give you the better look. You know what I'm saying? So
Absolutely.
so yeah, my next question for you, Joe, what would you consider? What do you think Well, have you struggled with any process of learning how to be a better photographer? If any, like, have you been struggling with clients when you started getting into it, or was it like a certain amount of people you only got because it was only for free for amount of time to get your value noticed?
Yeah, yeah. So I think in the beginning when I first started, I had a goal in mind, right?
Yeah.
Mind you, I started back in the early days. Right now, there's a lot of it, like the videography and photography space is way more saturated than it was when I
Okay.
started, right? Or when I got like really famous on social media for it, or really well known.
Yeah.
So back in the day, like it was amazing if you can, or like in my eyes, if I could just get free product in exchange for like a couple photos, or like a real quick 30-second promo video or something, right? And that to me was life changing. So I did acquire quite a handful of clients that way. And then eventually, like, I moved into asking for money, right? Um, Now this is a different time zone or a different time. So it wasn't necessarily difficult for me, but only because I built the personal brand on Instagram very well, you know? So I don't know if that answers your question entirely,
Mhm.
but that was kind of my journey earlier on. Now, however, I will say this: as I progressed in my career, and more people started stepping into this space and learning how to do photography, learning how to do videography, and start reaching out to these brands, that's really when I started to see the struggle happen. Where it wasn't a matter like I was in a unique spot where I had existing clientele that were willing to pay me, but they started lowballing me because they had like,
Mhm.
well, we have this other guy who maybe isn't you and your style, but he can do like half the job that you can for significantly less. So that's kind of when like all of a sudden it became a very competitive game. And, I had to evaluate like, is this worth my time or not? Right.
Yeah. Have you been like any like modeling shows or anything, taking pictures?
No, never. But mostly because that didn't interest me. So for
Okay.
me, and that was a big thing too. Like I was very niche, right? There's, and I think niche is really the way to go. But
Okay.
not all niches are created equal. So I think if you want to make the most money, like going to like fashion shows, you could probably, or like going to events, being an
Or
event photographer,
or
really good money.
TMZ?
At TNC. Oh God. Actually, I have no idea, but maybe. Actually,
Maybe.
probably. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's doing events is like great, and then even better, weddings.
Yes, I love that. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Weddings
have
are,
a
I
friend
think,
who kills it in weddings. It's crazy.
yeah, they get a lot. I mean, I know a guy in the Virginia area who did the same thing you're doing, photography, work, and videography. It's crazy how people make a better I guess you could say better they get a good look off of weddings for making their content. So
Mhm.
I think that's always been those things people don't understand. Like photographies and those areas are like unique because you get more people who don't get those opportunities to do those photo shoots and videos for those couples because they really want those moments captured the right way. And I think it's good to know that you do those because I think those are always the special ones that get the most memories. And you know what I'm saying? That I think those always lead to better connections over time when
Mhm.
they see your photos. They're like, hey, who's your photographer? I want to put on my wedding and then at my wedding.
Mhm.
It's like a link to so many people just to make that financial side get better when you're
Mhm.
chosen by the same people from the same event and that
Mhm.
goes beyond that. So I love that. That's a good way to put it. I love that you say weddings because I think that's a good way. With that being said, Joe, I want to also ask you this question.
Let's hear it.
What got you what got your camera to like when you studied your camera, was there any difficulties learning that whole thing? Because I get that I'm a photographer myself, but
Mhm.
when you started learning the camera side of things, what was your challenge in that area when you started like understanding it more? What got you into it to understand it better?
Yeah. So what made me what made me figure out like certain things about my camera was trying to capture different styles of photography, right?
Yeah.
So experimentation, essentially, right? When, like, for instance, there's this thing called long exposure photography. It's actually my least favorite form of photography personally. However, you can capture some pretty amazing images in the nighttime, where it'll bring the actual light visible. So like you can actually see things versus if you don't do long exposure, you take a photo at night, you're probably not going to see a thing. It's going to be pitch black, right? So I would experiment with like searching YouTube tutorials. How do I capture a long exposure photo or whatever, right? Anything that I took interest in, I was like, how do they do that? So like I would find inspiration from other photographers on Instagram or internet, and then I'd be like, how can I capture something like this? They would, there'd be a tutorial on it. I'd put into action, and then in doing so, I learned, oh, I didn't know this was a feature on my camera. Um, Nowadays it's way more easier, way more properly formatted in these videos, but back in the day it was like all over the place. So I don't know if that answered that question. And then you asked the second part to that question, right? What was it?
How did you understand your camera as you're getting better into your photography with your camera? How did you understand it well to use it properly? And
Yeah,
how,
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, go ahead. That's it.
Yeah. So also the other thing came down to developing your own style, right? I developed my own style with how I wanted images to look, you know, and the best way I can put it is if you capture an image correctly before you edit it. So editing is called post, right? So you're going to hear me say post for those of you who aren't familiar. But if you capture an image properly, before post, then when you do the post editing or when you go into post, then all of a sudden everything is going to look properly whenever you add your preset or your editing style to it, right? So I was figuring it, that was like how I also like kind of got more familiar with it. I just tried different things, like I said, and then I found my style,
Yeah, that makes sense. Let's find your style through the post that you're doing. You said post, right? The post to just see how it
Yeah,
looks,
just
and then you
post,
make
you
your
could say editing, post editing, yeah.
edit, post editing. Okay, makes
So like
sense.
Lightroom, Photoshop, all that.
Yeah, have you ever done the old school, like put the red room on and just do the photos? You ever try that?
I never was really into film photography for the longest. I know a lot of like people in the photography space are. I think that's kind of where like I'm very unique. I've always loved the way that the cameras looked. I've just never been a fan of that whole process. And I've considered it more recently. However, I don't think I'm going to get into it because it's a pretty pricey hobby that for me, I'm not planning on making money off of it, if
Yeah,
I were
put
to
in
do
some
that.
special water and let dilute, and then hang it up to watch it dry, and then you can see the
Yeah.
photos like that. So, yo, back in the day, they worked really hard, just like typewriting. They had to take a whole paper and start over if they messed up one typo. So it's like,
Oh,
man, that's the worst. But hey, we are blessed to be in these times. I'm thankful to hear your story because that's like, man, I can only imagine if those guys could just get out of that. They were just like struggling. They had to perfect that, and just
mhm.
like you're perfecting your craft but faster in a way where you can just delete it and start over without going through the hassle of spending more
Oh,
money. Yeah. And
yeah.
so with technology now being more involved in the space, how has AI affected your creativity in any way with your artwork and I mean your art instead of just like taking photos? And I know I've noticed that with people using art to well not art, but let's say edit a video from a picture from the past
Mhm.
has a lot of old pixels, and now you can use the app to clear up all the pixels and make it
Mhm.
with color. Now, what are
Mhm.
your thoughts on that? Since you see those apps from the AI coming out.
Yeah, I think AI is going to eliminate a lot of people in the creative space uh, who are not serious, you know.
Mm,
And I think it's going to create and maybe I'm probably being very blunt or harsh with saying that, but I really do believe that. I think AI
yes.
though will allow other creatives to actually expedite uh their art process or their creative process, right? As well as come up with even crazier ideas than before. So I don't see it so much as a threat. I only think it's going to be a threat to people who don't want to evolve as an artist. Does that make
Right.
sense?
It does.
So like with anything, AI still needs a human to power it. And so it's really like you can make it as it can do amazing things, at least right now, because it's not like actual separate individual artificial intelligence. It's like a
Oh,
man-powered
yeah.
intelligence, you know?
Yeah. I feel you.
So
That's where you say that. I was like, he said artificial. Yeah, I believe it the way you put it. I'm thinking about the other stuff you said just now. I mean, I think about something else when you say artificial. I'm thinking about the unidentified or UFO. I'm thinking about that
oh
just now.
man.
Like,
Oh man.
yeah,
We
yeah,
won't get into that.
that's not the
That's a whole
time
nother
and place,
pod.
but yeah, that's a whole nother conversation. But I know what you're talking about though. It makes sense. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I think that AI stuff is definitely crazy because I took it some old photos from my mom and dad, and
Yeah.
went to the photo album and took a few pictures on my phone, and then used the app, and yeah, it's crazy. It works. It makes sense that they use that now for
Yeah.
that. But yeah, man, you don't have to worry about those blurriness as much. But now you take pictures, you just got to make sure the camera's perfect, not swaying and all that
Yeah.
stuff. That's really it. But
I
what
mean,
about?
go
Yeah,
ahead.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was gonna say about like AI too. It's like people, it's funny. So there are three types of people that you encounter in
Yeah.
life, right? There's going to be people who are never going to adopt it, the non-adopters, as I like to call them, and they're going to be left behind. Then there's going to be the people who are like the average adopters, which use it how exactly they're told to use it. And then there's going to be the innovative adopters, right? Which these are going to be people who like create new ways of leveraging the same exact tool, right? And the key here is, in my personal opinion, if you really want to be ahead of the game as a creative, or even if you're using AI in different industries, because I do business as well, so I'm well versed in these things. You want to fall into that last camp that I mentioned, which is the innovative adopter, right? And these are all terms that I've coined myself. I haven't heard it out there, but I'm not saying I invented it at the same time. But the innovative adopter is going to be someone who is able to be like, well, I wonder if this thing could create this and this and merge this and this together, and then compile this together for me. And then they try it and they see if it goes or see if it works, right? Like those are going to be some of the people who end up getting ahead, because they're going to know something that isn't publicly talked about or mainstream yet,
Yeah, that makes it. Excuse me. That makes sense. With that said, yeah, the mainstream media may not promote it as much, but I think this is going to get big over time, because we are in the technology age where Tesla's taking over, and also technology is taking over, like driving, and like the next thing is coming up will be what's that one thing called? Chat GPT. You're creating new titles from YouTube for that. That just is reference. I'm thinking about what people tell me. That is crazy. But what do you think could be better with the AI in your field of creativity that could be helpful? Do you think there's anything good about it, helpful to your personal journey?
Yeah. I think it's so like if we're talking about, there's different types of AIs out there, right? It isn't like most people talk about Chat GPT, but there's different apps and things out there, for lack of a better phrase. Chat GPT is great for coming up with ideas and brainstorming, or like even like having someone assist you, essentially like actual legitimate virtual assistant or digital assistant. So I think that's great. Like if you're like, give me, like if you're trying to come up with ideas and you're lacking creativity, that's a great way of being like, hey, write me 10 ideas, 10 creative photography ideas that involve a model, a male or female model, a tree, and a skyscraper, or something. I don't know. Like you could type in literally whatever, and it'll give you like 10 ideas generated off of that.
You heard about? Oh, you talking about the same AI that generates these pictures?
No, I'm not even talking about the Dolly. You're talking about the Dolly aspect. Yeah. So I'm just saying like just Chat GPT, right? That's one aspect. If you're using things like Dolly or whatever, that's more like art, right? It's not so much photography, and you could add your photography to it, of course. Or maybe not that one, but certain ones you can, like the Lens AI thing, right?
Yeah, that's popular.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. It's crazy. But I think what it really comes down to is it's speeding up editing processes, It's speeding up like creative thinking. It's speeding up the process of editing, whether it's photo or video. There's actually like AI for video editing. It's not perfect. You still need to like correct things and whatnot, but it's getting it done way faster than you would have on your own. And then it's also creating means to like improve your mistakes, because as photographers, like there's so many times that I've captured something, or a videographer, there's so many times where I capture something like, oh man, like I can't believe at this part I did this,
Do you believe with being a creative, do you think it's about still the same old ways, like you say, do you think it involves putting your heart and soul into your work?
That's an interesting view. I would say this is kind of where I differ from a lot of creatives. I think it depends on your intention when you're creating something, whether video or photo. For some creatives, or I'm gonna speak for myself, right? For myself, I like to inspire, right? Like everything I capture has to be inspirational in some capacity, right? I've shifted more recently to a more lifestyle-based stuff, so it's less about the environment I'm in and more so about like how I'm portraying myself in that environment. Again, personal branding, personal image, all that. However, for me, it's always like I want to leave people inspired when they see this photo. I want to leave people like, man, that's cool, that's dope. Some people might want to be like, I want to tell a story, right? And that's a very different type of approach, and I've done that before, right? So I can speak from experience. I think. Go ahead.
No, finish. I'm gonna let you finish. I'm sorry.
Yes, no, you're good. So I think like being in a position where you can figure out what your intention is with photography or videography, you can really like just hone in on that. And I really don't think AI is going to take anything away from that, because again, it's only as creative, it's only as amazing as you make it.
Okay, interesting. So, it's a good way to answer. I appreciate that. Thank
Mhm.
you. What do you do to keep yourself motivated and interested in your work?
Yeah. So for me, I don't really believe in motivation,
Okay.
right? I don't go out there and say, wow, I feel very motivated to shoot today, you know? But I will say this to kind of answer your question, and maybe it's just semantics or difference in language, but for me, I am constantly like giving myself freedom to create whatever comes to my mind in a moment, right? So Moses knows this because he's seen me firsthand.
Yep.
But I rarely ever. I'll pull this out real quick. I have like, this big old camera, right? But I don't really use it as much except for photos now, right?
I mean,
Um,
I might as well show off too. I'm
there you go.
learning, but I'm starting somewhere.
There
You
you
got the
go.
point. You got the right point. Hmm.
Now I just use, my iPhone mostly,
Facts.
you
That's
know,
facts.
even for some photos, like I haven't posted any. I like very high quality photos. It's the only reason why I still have my camera, but the iPhone's pretty good. But anyways, my point is like sometimes like I'll just like push the boundaries. Like I have an idea and I'll just test it. Right. I'm at a spot, I see something cool. I might not have my camera on me, or it's kind of annoying to pull out my camera, change the settings and all these things. I just pull out my phone and just like have the settings already set and just go for it. So I think being like motivated and things like that, I just like give myself the freedom and space to just create. And here's a big thing too. This is where I differ from a lot of creatives, I think. I personally don't like to make money off of my creativity as much anymore.
Okay.
Um,
That's unique.
which I'll explain what I mean by that in a sec. Doesn't mean
Okay.
I don't do it for money if I get offered, right?
Right.
Um, it just means like if I have there's a difference between a hobby and a career.
Mm.
Let's put it that way, right? I
Yeah.
got into photography as a hobby. And when I started turning it into a career, I started to hate it. I started to lose like inspiration and creativity, because now it became work. It became a job versus before it was just a creative outlet, right? I was capturing things that, amazed me, or like that I wanted to have a memory of. But now I'm not capturing things that amaze me or have a good memory. It's I'm capturing things for a brand, so that way I can get some money and get paid, right? Nothing wrong with that, by the way. I'm not like saying that's a bad thing. Some of the best creatives, or some of the most successful financially speaking creatives I know, they are very good at not caring about being the most creative, and they're just doers, right? They're actually not the best editor. They're not the best photographer, videographer. They're just the best doer, you know? So
Yes, best doer. That's a good way to put it. So, what do you define being? What do you define as a visionary?
yeah, visionary, that's a good one. I think someone who has a very clear direction of where they're wanting to go, or a grand vision for their life or their career or whatever they're pursuing at that time. And I think a visionary is someone who is not only able to have that imagery or that idea in mind, or that end goal in mind, but also being able to bring that to life. Because there's a difference between a dream and a vision, right?
Mm,
A dream is like, oh, kind of lofty. Not that you can't achieve it, but it's kind of lofty. And a vision is more like clear, like there's action steps that can be attributed to it. But it's not necessarily just a goal though. You know? Like
yeah,
a vision is grander than a goal.
that makes sense. So, some actually, this is a different. This is outside of the
Yeah.
creativity, but it's still the same thing. So, if your creative work was edible, what would
Mhm.
it taste like?
Ooh. Ooh, that's a good one. Uh like if I could compare it to like a specific dish.
Anything that tastes like what you think it might if seem relatable to what you like to eat. If anything tastes like.
Yeah, so I would say it tastes like some kind of exquisite cuisine, you know?
Okay.
I know that's like very vague and broad, but like, uh, it'd be something that like you look at it and it looks one way, but then when you taste it, it tastes completely different than it looks, but in a good way, you
Okay.
know? So it's like something that you don't want to just like, you want to quickly eat it because it's so good, but you also want to like take time to chew on it. Does that make sense?
Savor it. Yeah, savor it. Okay.
Yeah. So sweet and
So
savory, I guess,
sweet and savory. Okay. Sweet and
Yeah.
savory. Okay, dish. So do you critique your own work and explain?
Do I critique my own work?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm my harshest critic.
Okay. Explain
Absolutely.
that.
So I think as as a creative and just in general, really, there's a difference between negative self-talk and constructive criticism, right? A lot of people are negative self-talking themselves, which actually destroys your confidence in any realm, whether you're creative, whether you're a business person, whether you're a regular 9 to 5 worker or whatever. You need constructive criticism. And for me, that process looks like, okay, I did this. I'm okay with the results, but I know next time I need to do this better. You know, I think a lot of artists are very harsh on themselves. I am as well. You know, I don't get me wrong. I'll say like, oh man, this is absolutely garbage. You know, and the reason I'll say it's garbage is because it's like, oh man, I should have got the lighting this way or the highlights or whatever, you know, or blah, blah, blah. But then I'll be like, oh man, why didn't I think of like getting a more detailed shot of this, you know, or whatever. And that comes through time and experience. But even though I might use that language, I'm always ending it with like, okay, next time, make a mental note or make a physical note to do this, to capture
Mm,
this, to do that.
yeah.
So that's my framework for it.
Okay. I like that. Makes sense. So so to make sure this is off the wall.
Mhm.
Has rejection, ever affected your creative process?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like, I think social media is one of the most cancerous things to a creative.
Yeah.
Uh, Mostly not because social media itself is bad. I don't believe that. I believe it's just a tool. However, I think the mentality, like as an artist, artists are very sensitive, you
Mm,
know, to people, the way people talk about their art, right? The way people perceive their art.
okay.
I would, when I wouldn't say I'm sensitive now. However, when I first started out and I was kind of like a little bit nervous to like put my stuff out there, you know, it was kind of a bummer to see like an image that in my opinion was, it sucked in comparison to mine or was like mediocre, and it get 1,000 likes, but mine only get like 10.
Right.
You know, it's like, I think with that scale, like, yeah, you know, yeah, anyways.
That makes sense. I understand. So what would you like to be remembered from your work?
Yeah, I mean, you know, my handle is Adventure with Joe. Regardless of what environment I'm in, I always want people to feel like they're joining me on the adventure just by
Okay.
watching and viewing my page. And then on occasion, you know, some people get the opportunity to join me literally in person on my adventures. So yeah,
Yeah, that
I want
makes
to be
sense.
remembered for taking people on an adventure in any kind of capacity.
Make it unique so they don't feel like it's just another video.
Exactly.
That's true. Good point. Good point. So what do you strive now since you've been creative for how many years now since you've been to be creative?
Oof. Oh man, I want to say, I mean, depends on when you would count it. Like if you count it since I was 12, I'm 26 now, almost 27.
So
Um,
divide from your serious years to your regular years, I guess you could say.
yeah, so I'll say this, but like, let's say to be fair, let's say from 18 to now, right?
Okay, so
So I'm 26. So what would that be like 9 years? No,
9
more,
years.
9 years.
Okay, okay. So what's the best advice that you've been given on your journey?
Yeah, don't compare. Um,
I agree.
don't compare yourself to other artists because you know you're not them and they're not you. Uh, Great artist copy, or sorry, good artist copy, great artist steal. Uh, you know, and I know steal is like a very intense word, but I literally mean like
Negative to
basically like,
everybody.
yeah,
Yeah,
it has a negative association, but in the context of art, it's like essentially getting inspiration is like you try copying someone's or like stealing someone's exact style or whatever, but then you kind of evolve into your own from there.
right. Exactly.
And then I would say the last piece of advice is recognize whether you're doing art as an expression and an outlet
Okay.
to process feelings, emotions, memories, traumas, anything, versus something you want to do for a living,
Mm.
you know. That I would say is the most important thing. Oh, and then the last one is, do not turn a passion into, and this is a very, very controversial one. Don't pursue your passions financially, or don't turn your passion into a financial, like to a career or to a job.
Oh, don't turn your passion to a profession.
Exactly.
Okay,
Leave it as a,
I've heard
a
that.
hobby. Leave it as a hobby.
That's funny you say that. Man, that makes, man, I thought about that sometimes. Like, man, do I want the amount of doing for the money? I don't even like it no more. It's just like, man,
Exactly.
that's a good way to put it, man. I thought about that. It's true. That makes sense. I agree.
And there's nothing, and I'm not saying like you can't be someone who makes money off of a creative thing, but if you are, you, most of the time, like I said, the people that I've seen do the best by making money off of it and aren't stressed and aren't they don't care about the creative element of the creative art or the creative profession.
Mm.
They're creative people. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's like it's removed from creativity. However, they are there because they enjoy doing the work. Right. Which is very different from, oh, I'm so passionate about this topic or this subject or this creative outlet. But then it's really just like a hobby that you enjoy and you're passionate about it because there's no work attributed to it and there's no pressure or stress, you know?
Right.
So
that makes sense. Okay. So, so let me read this to you. I got this for you. In thinking about the things that you have created, is there something that you hated, but the public may have loved it and perhaps purchased? How do you explain this?
Oh man. Oh man.
It's a good way. Good question.
That's a really good question, man. You're gonna make me admit this publicly? No, I'm just kidding. So
yeah.
when I first got started, okay, so oh man. Okay, let me see how to put this. I won't go into too many details because it involved a transaction, but I'm going to kind of briefly touch on it. So back in my early days of videography, I actually secured a client. And they paid me way more than I thought I was worth at that time, rightfully so. It wasn't like I was just lacking confidence. Like I just didn't have the expertise that I sold them on, you know, but they were willing to pay, you know, and I shot a video for them. And I'm not going to lie, it was not the best video. Somehow they were happy with the result, which was like good for me. But, you know, they paid me $3,000 for a video that was probably at best worth $750. You know, I didn't have the right lenses. The lighting was terrible. But I think because of the type of stuff that I was capturing, they were really excited because of more of the memories that was captured in that video. That makes sense. Again, without getting into too much details, like that was something that I did. On another note, I'll say this. There was one time a photo I took, which to me was a very bland photo. This one I could talk about a little bit more detail. So there's this photo I took. It's really cool. I had an ultra wide 14mm lens. So that's like very, very wide. Like think about the 0.5 on the iPhones nowadays. It was kind of like that. This is before most people didn't shoot with that stuff. I was someone who bought that early on. And I had this photo taken of me by my friend. I told him exactly what I wanted. He like aimed it and everything. And he captured me in this place called the Redwoods, Jedediah National Park, right? Where all the redwood trees are. They're huge, gigantic trees, like thousands of years old. And the photo was pretty bland, you know, like because of the area, there was only there was a little bit of green, but there was mostly just like brown tree bark. And the thing about me with photography, I like meshing like at least 3 colors together. I don't like just one color like flat, you know, so it kind of had like a flat look. It wasn't a bad photo, but like for whatever reason, like I think I got like, I don't even remember how much. I got like at least like 2,000 likes, you know, on that. And it was insane versus like something cool, like a waterfall with like that was more up my alley or whatever, or like
with the rainbow behind it and stuff.
Yes, something, you know, like, yeah, it would be like, oh, I got like 752,000 likes, which is still great, you know, but it's like, oh my God, you know.
Okay. I mean, it makes a good way to put that. I like that. So with that being said, we'll go on to final thoughts. So what are your final thoughts on this topic about being a creative and where you've been in your life? you don't have to make it too long, but make it short and simple for your story. And you don't have to put too much detail, but it's basically what you think, what you learned on your journey at this age. You're 26. So what do you have you learned on your time in this journey being creative?
Yeah, I've learned that I've learned that basically when it comes to equipment and tools, you're not going to get better at capturing an image or being a creative by purchasing more expensive equipment. You're better off, and I know this is like kind of like a long explanation, but I'm trying to see how to put this into words while being respectful. You're better off just like doing. The more you can create, the better. As bad as that sounds, like don't try and make everything perfect. Just like fail forward, fail often, experiment a lot, that type of deal. Okay. So like I have a camera that I probably shouldn't say this, but whatever, it's like $7,000 to $10,000 depending, because of all the lenses and things that I have for it. Right. But the truth is I create honestly sometimes better stuff, if not on par with this, $1,000 iPhone or whatever. Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, don't let tools or don't create the excuse in your head like, oh, I can't create this because I don't have the proper tools. Because I've seen people with less do more, so
right.
It goes back to less is more. I guess
less
that's
is
my overall lesson.
Okay. No, less is more. I agree. Okay. Well, usually what I do when we have a show, we're ending, I always like to, host, as myself, close it with a prayer. But man, I want you to close this with a prayer. You know what I'm saying? We're believers, and I trust the guests I bring on is in my house. So I want you to, be my guest and close us out. The people who are believers, usually with the believers, I do this for the believers. If non-believers, we don't pray because I respect their view as not being of the same faith. So we'd like to do this for the prayer so we could close out the show. And I would love that from you, Joe.
Awesome, brother. Hey, really appreciate that. Let's get into it.
No problem. All love, man. All right.
God, Abba, we thank you for the opportunity to have conversations like these with my brother Moses. We pray that those who are listening to this, they may be inspired, they may be motivated, they may see things in a different light within the creative realm. We ask that you continue to inspire others, but also encourage others to pursue their dreams, pursue the vision that they have for their life, and not compromise who they are in the process of it. And also, I pray for this podcast. May Moses continue to get incredible people to be on it, have amazing conversations, and just valuable information that people can take away and improve their own life using. In Jesus' name, thank you. Amen.
Man. Yeah, Joe, awesome conversation, bro. Look forward to the future. We might have a panel of all the creative that I know so we can get a good conversation about what people may not know from all of us that are being on the same path. Definitely good opportunity to look in the future. I definitely want you on again. Thank you so much for your time. And man, bless you, man, for being able to open up about your story, about your life and where you've been. And I appreciate your time. And thank you so much for being able to come on podcast and just also sharing your story. And thank you for being open about it.
Absolutely, brother. It was my pleasure. Thank you.
All right, guys, we will catch you on the next episode. Please listen and please follow him on the social medias. I'll have in the description. And also, please check him out and give him a shout out and follow him. And also, if you're in Cali, reach out to him for you need work done. I recommend him highly because he does some work for me for free, which I didn't ask for free. I thought I was going to pay him, but he's a great guy. I would definitely pay him. If you definitely want to pay him, I would recommend it because he's working too. So, he's basically doing free work. But hey, guys are doing the work for the work for God. And I believe Joe has a great creativity and he's definitely unique, one of his kind. And he's coming from a place where he wants to love his work. And he does put his heart into his work, what he said. He loves his talent from God. So give him that support, give him that love gift. You know what I'm saying? So go for Joe. That's what I say. All right. Not the other Joe, this Joe. Okay.
I appreciate it, brother. Appreciate it.
Bro.
It means a lot.
Well, guys, we'll catch you next time. So we're going to be heading out. Thank you guys for taking this tradition and modern talks. Peace and blessings.